I want to take you back to 1970s Montreal. Political tension, but a family falling apart. And for young Oren Safdie, Canadiens goalie Ken Dryden brought calm in the chaos. His new play, Beyond Ken Dryden, looks back.
The Canadiens call up a new goaltender from their farm club. Originally from Hamilton, Ontario, Ken Dryden debuts in a game against the Pittsburgh Penguins and leads the team to a 5-1 victory, followed by a string of 5 consecutive victories. Now, this is no ordinary goalie. He wears number 29. He stands at 6'4", weighs 200 pounds, and wears a mask that looks like a galvanized pretzel, giving him the impression of a Roman gladiator. I imagine
you're watching a clip from the play right there. This is about a legendary hockey player, but it's also about family, identity, and the power of finding stability in unlikely places. Joining us this morning is the playwright behind Beyond Ken Dryden, Oren Safdie. Great to have you on the show.
Great to be here. Thank you.
I saw you nodding when I said it's more than just a hockey player.
Well, he was at the time, yes, definitely. He was not the norm of the hockey player that that came to mind. For one thing, he went to school and went to a very good school, Ivy League school. So for parents that were looking at their kids who were playing outside and not doing their studies, he was a good role model for that.
He was.
Yeah.
The play is deeply personal for you.
Very much so, yes.
What made now the right time to tell this story?
Well, I was teaching a class at St. Olaf College in Minnesota last year, and it was personal narrative writing. And all my students were writing about their childhoods, and it got me thinking about writing my own story and what was that. And I realized that Montreal was a great place to grow up, but there were a lot of difficult things as well. My family was coming apart. It wasn't the only one because, you know, we think of the 60s as free love, but it was the 70s where you kind of got the fallout. A lot of parents and families were breaking up, and on top of that, province of Quebec was about to split up. So everything was coming apart, and it was also a great time to be there. And right around the time of, you know, 71, Ken Dryden comes to the Canadiens, and the Canadiens dominate the decade with six Stanley Cups in, I think, 8 years. And I really believe that that's what held us all together in some ways. You know, when you kind of go forward and you know that your team's going to be contending or winning a Stanley Cup, it makes you feel very positive about things, and it unites the city because, you know, French, English, we didn't care. When you're in the arena or where you're in the streets, I love watching those scenes when they cut away when a goal's scored here and everyone's jumping together because it shows you how important these sports teams are to bringing us together when we have divisions.
That's such a beautiful answer. That's that right there is the study of why sport unites us.
Yes.
Yeah. You grew up in your father, Moshe Safdie's architectural project, Project 67. You spoke about the separatist movement that was happening in Quebec. Your parents, they were splitting up, and then there was a house fire that you saved your family from. So when you see all of that you were going through, and then you pause and you watch the Canadiens play.
Right.
I imagine that so many other people could relate to that story of growing up in Montreal in the 70s.
Yeah, I think it's quite universal, and it doesn't only have to be Montreal. There's, you know, children go through many different things, and we sometimes overrate the sports hero. But when you're in a time and things are rough and you turn on the television and there's a player, you have to remember in those days, the players were actually from your region. Most of them were from Quebec. You know, Ken Dryden, we accepted him. He was from Ontario. But most of them grew up around you, and there was no free agency. So you can count on your players being there year after year. And that was really important. Funny enough, when we had the fire, it was sort of the happiest moment in my life. It was in 1970 because my family was so close together. We stayed in a hotel room. It was one of those things where it was only after that things started to fall apart and went on for 8 years. It's funny because the parallel of my family kind of going back and forth was 8 years, and so was Ken Dryden's run. And so it was sort of a very parallel sequence of events that I thought would make a good play, and I sort of go back and forth between the two.
I have so many questions for you, but I have to ask before we run out of time.
Yes.
Has Ken Dryden talk to you, or does he know that this play exists?
Yes. In fact, my publicist in Montreal, when I did it the first time, says, why don't you just send the script to this publisher? I sent it. Within 1 day, I got a reply. He would love to read it. Within 2 days, I got the script back with a huge list of notes of like corrections. And, you know, I did a lot of studying up on things and research, but I had Wikipedia and a bunch of other things, and he'd say, well, no, that game on, you know, October 17th, it wasn't 5-3, it was 5-4. And there was a whole list, and I realized that, you know, his brilliance as a goalie was not just about his physical play, but he is so kind of clued into every detail, and I'm sure that translates when he's on the ice. And other things, obviously, he's inspired me when he wrote The Game. You know, he was never a writer before. He just wrote The Game. And so I was in architecture school. I said, hey, I could be a writer too.
You can be a writer too. And God, what a story. Thank you so much for coming in this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.